Hi, and welcome to Run Tall with Tim, the YouTube channel that's dedicated to all runners everywhere. I'm Tim, and I upload new running videos every week. If you're new to the channel, I post videos on both Wednesday and Saturday mornings, and that's at 5 a.m. Standard Eastern Time here in the US. I also like to post bonus videos once in a while. So if you enjoy watching running shoe reviews and other videos related to running, be sure to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time that I upload new content. Also, if you want to try to save yourself a little time, I tried to make that easy for you. If you open the description, there you're going to see where I've created chapters. All you have to do is click on the timestamp for the part of the video that you want to watch, and it's going to take you right there. On today's episode, I'm comparing two carbon-plated racing shoes. These are both considered to be ultra lightweight. First is the Saucony Endorphin Pro, and it's going to be going up against the Skechers GoRun Razor Elite. But before we get into it too far, let me just demonstrate what it looks like to run in these shoes. But then when we come back together, we're going to take a real close look at both of these to see which one might be right for you. Now, this video is not intended to be a full review of either shoe, but if you're interested in that, I'll put a link in the description below that'll take you to each one. So let's start by looking at the cost of these. Now, with the Endorphin Pro, they cost $200 US, while the Razor Elites cost $155. So definitely a little less expensive for the Elites than it is for the Pro. Looking at the weight of the shoes, big difference here as well. Now, with the Endorphin Pro, on my scales, they come in at 7.4 ounces or 212 grams, while the Razor Elite, now they come in considerably less weight. I would say these are ultra lightweight shoes, and they come in at 5.3 ounces or 151 grams, and that's again for a men's size 9 on my scales. Now, both of these are considered to be neutral road shoes. And for me, they came in just a little bit small or snug on foot. So, I wear men's size 9, as I mentioned, and I felt like these were just about a quarter size smaller than that. So a really nice, tight race feel on both of them. So that's something that they certainly do have in common. Let's look at the construction on the uppers, and we'll start with the Endorphin Pro. As we zoom in and we take a real close look up at that midfoot and toe box, as I mentioned, it does run a little bit narrow. Now, the material is a mesh form-fit material. It has a little bit of stretch to it. That's nice. It doesn't restrict your movement as you're going through your gait cycle. As we pan around to the side of the shoe, you can see that, they've got some plastic overlay here. They got their Saucony logo that's sprawled across this midsection of the shoe. And then as we work our way around to the heel counter, you can see they have some plastic overlay there as well that adds a little bit of structure. Now, as we move over to the Skechers Razor Elite, we can see that, again, a little bit narrow up in that toe box and across the midfoot. So they do have that in common. Now, this is a completely different type of mesh upper. It has more of a plastic feel to it, while the Endorphin Pro has more of a cloth-like feeling. So very little stretch in that material. And then as we move our way around to the midsection of the shoe, we can see that there's virtually no plastic overlays on this shoe at all, with a little bit of structure in the heel counter, but not nearly as much as there is in the Endorphin Pro. Now, the material on both of these is pretty darn thin. In terms of breathability, I'm going to give the nod here to the Endorphin Pro just because of the type of material that they used. That cloth material seemed to allow a little bit more airflow through my toe box than the Razor Elites did, but both are highly breathable. I just think that between the two, the Endorphin Pro was a little bit cooler underfoot. Turning now and looking at the eyelet chain or the lace enclosure system, we can see with the Endorphin Pro that they have this plastic overlay around the outside of the eyelets. And that's simply to give it a little bit of durability so you don't have to worry about your laces pulling through that upper material. And they've also included that extra eyelet for a runner's knot. Looking at the Skechers Razor Elite, they're pretty minimalistic here. They don't have that big plastic overlay, but they do have reinforced material around the eyelet. So again, you don't have to worry about your laces pulling through. It gives it a little bit of durability because on both of these uppers, that material that they used is pretty much paper thin. Now, there's a slight difference on the tongue of these shoes. With the Endorphin Pro, it has a semi-gusset. That way, you don't have to worry about it migrating around. It lays flat on my foot. There's no padding there to speak of, but I still found it to be really comfortable. With the Razor Elite, that too has no padding to speak of. And while it doesn't have a gusset, it does have a loop that you thread your laces through that holds your tongue in place. So again, I didn't have any issues with that tongue bunching up either. They both laid flat on my feet. I felt were really comfortable. Looking at the padding around the heel collar and the tab, we're going to start with the Endorphin Pro first. And you can see that they have a pretty decent amount of padding for a carbon-plated racing shoe. Most of it is focused back more towards your Achilles area. But I didn't have any hot spots when I was out running, and I felt like there was plenty of cushion there or padding to help make me feel comfortable when I was out running and working out in these shoes. Didn't have any issues with it that way at all. Looking at the Razor Elite, again, no issues in terms of hot spots, although, they do have a minimal amount of padding, but it's more evenly distributed. So they have padding that's up more around your collar of the shoe all the way through to the tab. So again, more an even distribution of the padding there, but a very minimal amount of it. So more than adequate to help keep me comfortable when I was out running. Didn't have any issues. Looking at the heel counter, now with the Endorphin Pro, they have a little bit more structure than the Razor Elite. So you can see as I pinch it together, it has a little bit, or as I'm just trying to go forward with it, but there's not a lot. And when I say there's a little more than the Razor Elite, it wouldn't take much for that to happen because there's virtually no structure here. It's just that upper material with no additional, structure back there at all. Still, I found that they were really comfortable. They both have nice heel pockets to set in, and with that lace enclosure on each of them, and they run small like a racing shoe often does. I did feel locked in and secure in the heel. So even though there's no structure back there, I still felt pretty darn secure when I was out running. Now let's look at the midsole. And this is basically where the magic happens in both of these shoes. And we'll start with the Endorphin Pro first. Now they have their PWRRUN PB based foam, and they have a lot of it. They have 33.5 millimeters in the heel, and they have 25.5 millimeters in the forefoot for an 8 millimeter offset from the heel to the toe. It is super responsive. It has an S-curve carbon fiber plate that's infused in that midsole. Together with that way that foam has been sculpted, with that carbon fiber plate, they create what they call a Speedroll technology that helps to propel you forward just a little bit faster, giving you a little extra something as you move through your gait cycle. Let's turn now and we'll take a look at the Razor Elite. And they have their Hyperburst midsole material here with a 28 millimeter stack height in the heel and 24 millimeters in the forefoot. So considerably less foam underfoot than you'll find in the Endorphin Pro, but it's ultra lightweight. It is very responsive, and it has more of a racing flat feel to it with that 4 millimeter offset from the heel to the toe. Also, another big difference is it has a carbon fiber plate that's infused only in the forefoot of the shoe, unlike the Endorphin Pro that has a full-length carbon fiber plate. They also have what they call M-Strike design, so a little bit different than that Speedroll technology. M-Strike was created in order to promote a mid-foot strike to make your gait a little bit more efficient as you move through it. I found that to be really comfortable. It's really a rocker design. It creates a nice smooth transition as you move through your gait cycle, landing on my midfoot and then going all the way through to my toe off. I just felt a very natural feeling that way. And although there's not as much foam underfoot, that Hyperburst material that's infused with nitrogen, and they use that supercritical process, which is just a chemical term for how they infuse that foam with nitrogen, gives it a really nice bouncy, springy ride. And again, it's not as soft as the Endorphin Pro is in terms of cushioning underfoot, but it is surprisingly soft feeling for just how much less foam that they have in this shoe than they do the Endorphin Pro. So talking about performance, they're both really quick shoes, but they go about it completely differently. Now with the Endorphin Pro, they have a very stiff S-curve carbon fiber plate throughout the shoe, and I can't even bend that. I'm trying, and there's really no give to that at all. So if you're a forefoot foot striker, and you can bend that carbon fiber plate, I think you're going to get a lot of pop off the toe, which creates that speed as you move through your gait cycle. Lots of help there. Quite a bit different than with the Razor Elite that only has the plate up in the forefoot of the shoe, but there's a lot of give there. And so this is a much more natural feeling to me underfoot, and as a midfoot striker, it feels more comfortable. I think if I were, a runner with maybe a little bit more mass than what I have, because I'm a bit lighter runner, and I had the ability to bend that carbon fiber plate in the Endorphin Pro, I think I could get a little bit more speed out of it, even though it's a bit heavier shoe. With the Razor Elite, I think the speed comes from just how light this shoe is and that Hyperburst midsole material with that forefoot plate, and it gives it that extra bit of snap off the toe. So, overall, for me, I'm more comfortable running naturally in the Razor Elite than I am in the Endorphin Pro. Also, the foam underfoot with the Endorphin Pro, as I mentioned, there's a little bit more of it, or quite a bit more of it actually, and it is pretty soft, but that's also a little bit troubling for me at times because the heel in this shoe, that foam seems to collapse pretty quickly for me. And as somebody that overpronates, that heel will snap in on me when I'm running, and that can create some issues because I do overpronate. That can cause a lot of stress on my ankles and so on. That can cause some issues for me if I don't pay close attention to that and really kind of limit my miles in the shoe. So unfortunately, even though the Endorphin Pro is a very quick shoe underfoot, and I love to run in it because it is a lot of fun. And with that plate, when I can get up on my forefoot more, you can definitely tell that there's a lot of speed there that comes with that. But this shoe is just a little bit more stable when I land. The foam doesn't collapse on that medial side so much, so I don't get as much ankle roll when I do strike back a little bit further, in my foot strike. So let's flip these shoes over and we'll take a look at, how they're protecting their foam underfoot. And with the Endorphin Pro, they have carbon rubber here, and they've got it pretty much in the strategic areas. They got the midsection of the shoe, which is bare, it's not covered, but they have it all around the outside edge and a fair amount up in that forefoot, maybe even a little bit more than they actually need, but plenty to give you some durability on the outsole and a little bit of traction. Now, both have pretty thin layer of rubber here. So it's not real thick, but this carbon rubber is pretty durable. So I don't think you're really going to need much more than what they have here to make that foam last. With the Razor Elite, they have their Goodyear rubber. I do like that. It gives a little bit of extra traction. Again, a very thin layer of it in strategic areas. I think they have just a little bit more of the midsole material covered with the Goodyear rubber than they do with that carbon rubber on the Endorphin Pro. But still, both were, I think more than adequate for what you need. And again, they have it in the high abrasion areas, strategically placed. They don't have it here in the medial side of the shoe. Like they do in the Razor Plus version of this shoe, which is basically this shoe without a carbon plate and a little bit more comfort in the upper. Overall, I felt like a lot of traction there and plenty of rubber, even though it's a really thin layer to protect that Hyperburst midsole material. Hey, I really enjoyed making this video for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, maybe give us a thumbs up. As always, run tall, run strong, be kind to one another. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.